See the idea. Hey everybody, how's it going? One thing that I've kind of learned from my experience as someone who rides a bike as a driver is I never park in bike lanes, even temporarily. I don't have it in me to do that. I will ride around the block if need be. I'll find anything to avoid parking inside of a bike lane. It's just one of those things where it's really difficult to be on the other end of it. It's kind of like if you work at a call center. Some people were asking why I was so patient when I was speaking with that gentleman from the Department of Consumer Affairs who was obviously kind of high. And I said, as someone who worked at a call center, even though I only spent 6 weeks working at a call center, I don't have it in me to scream at someone else at the other end of the call center. Even if they are reporting to the city that I didn't pay my insurance bill when I do, and I have demonstrable proof from the insurance company that I did, even when I'm talking about insane, ridiculous I don't have it in me to scream at call center people, just because I have that 6-week experience when I was 17 years old of working for 3P delivery for Lowe's customers. I can't do it through good temps. And it's something with riding my bike and driving. I have yet to park in a bike lane, and if I am ever in a situation where I just need to be somewhere for a quick period of time, I would ride around the block rather than park and put my hazard lights on in the bike lane. I don't have it in me to be that douchebag. So it's a pretty nice weather outside. You usually get about 2 weeks of spring and 2 weeks of autumn in New York. That's 2 weeks where you can go outside in a short sleeve shirt, and you don't feel freezing, but you also don't feel like you're burning either. You get about 2 weeks of nice weather, and this is that 2 weeks, and I intend to fully enjoy it. And it's really nice. Like I can pedal, but while I'm pedaling, I don't feel like I'm sweating, but I don't feel like the wind in my face is freezing me either. It's beautiful. It's lovely. Yes, cut around me and kill me. Nice, thanks. Speed ahead to your traffic, mofo. I'm using normal cam. I don't know how bad this is. This is a DJI Osmo Action with Rocksteady enabled. Rocksteady is the gimmicky word they use for their gimmicky stabilization that doesn't really seem to work from a lot of your comments. Some people have said mount the camera on your head because the camera is really shaky when it's on my bike, because the bike shakes a lot. So use your head as a gimbal. But then when I have it on my head, they say my head moves too much, so I don't. It's a camera on a bike, man. You get what you get. You get what you get. As you can see, the traffic is considerably up. This is a Sunday. Usually Sunday is not this busy because it's a day for people to rest, to take a day off, they're not going to work. There's less rush hour traffic, and as you can see, we have bumper to bumper traffic on Sunday. So the whole COVID, everybody stay inside is starting to finally go away here. I think you people in Florida got rid of that shit a year ago, but we're a little behind you there, just a little. People are starting to go out again. People are going to work again, and as you can see, this is a beautiful line of traffic. There's a green light ahead, and there is no movement. This is typical New York right here. Look at that traffic. Look at that beautiful, beautiful traffic. I have the cover of this beastly tank right here. So a couple of things I wanted to discuss in today's episode, while just showing you a bit of how New York is getting busier as people return from COVID. Oh no, this is a one-way street, bro. I'm playing a game of chicken here. Yeah, that's right. I ain't moving. There's nothing better than a game of bicycle chicken on a one-way street when someone comes bombing towards me. I'm ready for it. I got the first dose of the vaccine already. Once I get the second dose, I'll officially be immortal. Once I'm immortal, I'll be able to play games of chicken with higher stakes. I'm excited. But I wanted to discuss finances. This is something that I originally used to kind of go back and forth with my personal trainer on, that I'm starting to hear from way more people that I know. There was an acquaintance from high school, an ex-employee, a current employee, something that is that I never particularly thought to be incredibly controversial, but is becoming controversial. So I have a friend that has a apartment that is considerably nicer than mine, like much nicer than mine. Nicer area, more space, a building that actually has amenities and things, not a walk-up narrow staircase that always smells like whatever chemicals they're using that day in the building for painting or whatever. It's a considerably nicer apartment. And he used to use it to host parties and all sorts of other shit. And he liked it for that. He doesn't own it, he rents it. And throughout COVID, you couldn't really do any of that type of stuff. So he has no use for it. So for a year, he spent an inflated rate on this apartment that he didn't get to use for any of its intended purposes. And what he's looking at now, I thought, well, you know, his lease is up for the year. Perhaps he will find something that is a bit more within his means. This is somebody that I knew from high school. I don't really talk to very often. And he's actually going for a more expensive one. And when I asked him why, he's like, you know, you only live once. It's not like I'm saving up for my kid's college fund. I'm not going to live a miserable life and blah-de-blah. I'm not going to live a miserable life just to save a couple of dollars. And it's particularly interesting to hear the things that people tell themselves to convince themselves that it's a good idea to spend more than they make, or to have debt without having a really like a fund for yourself to suck my. Anyway. That's good. So there's a good number of excuses that I'll hear people give for why being in insane amounts of debt is a good idea. And I think that there's this dichotomy of I am either going to live a miserable life, I'm going to live a miserable life, but I'll have some savings, or I will live an incredibly fun life, but I will have credit card debt at a 17 or 20% interest rate. That's good. You fucking. And I think that this is a false dichotomy that should not exist. You fucking. I think there is a middle ground. And I think this kind of ties in a little bit to right to repair stuff. Because I think it may be that one of the true red pills with right to repair is that people actually kind of like having an excuse to buy new. You know, if they say to themselves, listen, I would have loved to not spend money. It's not that I'm a consumerist. It's not that I want the new features, the pretty thing. I don't want to spend money. But you don't understand. I had to. This thing was broken. And that if the manufacturer makes it difficult to repair or expensive to repair, then it kind of allows them to blame someone else for their worst instincts, which is I want to buy a new one. And I see people do this with a lot of shit. Like whether it's leasing cars, which cost way more money than what you can afford, renting apartments under the idea that you're going to use them for a use case that you're not going to use them for, and then once that's happened for a year, you just double down and rent another one. I think it's really strange to see how people can convince themselves that it's a good idea to live outside of their means. And I can't tell you how many times from people that have been in this situation, friends, occasionally family members, used to be ex-employees, that people would explain how horrible their money situation was. They would explain how screwed they were financially. And then I would look and I'd see your camera for your hobby that you just bought a few days ago costs $1,000 more than the camera that I use for a YouTube channel with 800,000 subscribers at the time. This is an 800,000 subscriber channel. I use this camera to travel around the country and record, write, to repair events. I use this camera for all of my videos, and it costs less than what you just bought. Or with vehicles. Vehicles is a stranger one to me than even an apartment, because an apartment you kind of have to live in, whereas a vehicle lease, let's say that I have a car and I don't use it for a year, right? Let's say I don't use it for a year because, or 2 years or whatever, because I'm in a city like this where driving doesn't make sense, or COVID happens or some shit. You're not going to really have much use for it, you know. So let's say I don't pay I pay the bill. I pay the bill for a car payment, but then I get the ability to use it again once I want to use it again, because it's my car. With a car lease, I mean, not only is it incredibly expensive, they limit you with mileage and all that, but once the time is up, you have to give it back. So let's say COVID happened, right? And you have a car lease, and you're not traveling to work, or you're not traveling to see people the way that you used to travel to see people because everything is closed. Well, for that entire 6 or 8 months, you paid for access to something that you don't use, and then once that is over, you don't have something to show for it. Because with a car payment, at least, well, you couldn't use the car in 2020, but you could use it, but that money you spent on it in 2020 is going towards you using it in 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, whereas the money that you put into it in 2020, if you don't use it, it kind of gets pissed away. And I bought myself a car recently, and I tried to avoid this for as long as humanly possible, because I prefer the simplicity of an electric bike that I build myself. I also prefer the decreased maintenance cost in general, the decreased insurance cost. You know, Bafang insurance is pretty cheap, if you know what I'm saying. I like the ability to park it easily, but admittedly, if I would like to make some cross-country trips, that is going to require a vehicle. But I held out for the longest possible time until I got this. I've held out on a fair number of things because I kind of wanted to have a level of financial stability. Because part of this equation for me of having a good life versus a bad life, having fun versus not having fun for me, is not having financial stress. Not having financial stress is a large part of what I call happiness. So take, for instance, now I'm not going to use private information here, because I think using private information about people's, and with public names is kind of fucked up. Let's use someone that, let's just say, I don't know, has publicly posted all of this to their own YouTube channel, right? So we're not using, Batcave rules here. Let's take Sunny. Now, I live in the same apartment in Bed-Stuy that I lived in 11 years ago. I have not moved. From the time where I was going door to door myself, physically carrying my own boxes to the post office because I couldn't have a post office pickup because all I did were house calls, and I wouldn't know, and I couldn't afford at the time the $15 a day to have the post office come at a specific set time so that I could schedule around it. And now, when I have 15 employees, I live in the same apartment building, in the same neighborhood. I've lived in the same neighborhood for about 12 or 13 years now, and I've lived in this apartment for about 11. I think Sunny has like an apartment, a house, 2 houses, 2 garages, and all this other stuff. And people that I've known have suggested, why don't you invest in this? Why don't you invest in that? Hey, why don't you move up a little bit? Have an apartment where when you turn on the shower, it doesn't take 3 minutes for the hot water to start coming out of it, so you don't, have goosebumps when you first get in the shower. Some of the most basic things that even people that have considerably less money than you might have at this point in time. And then I kind of think, maybe I should. Maybe what's the point of saving money and having an emergency fund and saving up to not be financially stressed? You only have one life. You only live once. Spend it. And then I see a video published by Sonny on his YouTube channel where he says that due to a tenant issue and due to a financial snafu, he got screwed over on one deal that he did. And after getting screwed over on that one deal, he then also had a tenant who decided, due to the rules in New York City, that I am going to pretend that I have a financial problem so that I don't have to pay rent, and attempted to blackmail him into leaving, that he is now living in his garage. So I call Sonny up and I say, hey, I saw your YouTube video. Are you memeing or are you seriously fucking living in your garage? And he is actually living in his garage. WTF. Now, I've gotten screwed over before. I have gotten Eugened. I have made some pretty stupid business decisions. Like one of them has, let's say, I don't know, moving to a larger store location right as the world economy goes to shit and all the New York walk-in business goes away for a year. But I am not living in a garage. And I also have a more minimal amount of financial stress when these things happen because I have more money in my wallet as a result of, nice aggressive, come on. Let me get to the bike lane. Because I live in the same apartment that I lived in 11 years ago. Because instead of having a lease that gets parked on the road 90% of the day that I waited to get a car until I absolutely positively, it was 110% a necessity. So that means that when something horrible happens, I breathe in, I breathe out, I curse, but I'm not moving to my garage. Sorry, man. You have a good day. So there's a value, I think, to having that. To having a bit of an emergency fund. To not having any serious kind of credit card debt. To where if you lose, so you lose out on a deal one week, or you lose a customer or something, that your world isn't crashing in on itself. Now, the interesting thing that my acquaintance with the apartment told me when I was discussing this with him is he said that most rich people don't want you to enjoy your life. And this is an interesting one, because this is one that I've heard from my own personal friends before I heard it from this acquaintance about the apartment. And this is one that I've always pushed back on. Now, are there rich people out there that likely don't want you, likely profit off of the fact that you get paid less? I'm confident that exists. Again, I have a repair shop. I know what the people that work here get paid. I know what the fucking, and I also know what the people at the surrounding ones get paid. I know the profit margins on these businesses. Let's just say if every salary at my store were a you break, I fix salary, there could be good profit in paying your employees shit. Most of those people that say, Louis, you must be a millionaire right now, or the people that always say in my comments, you're a millionaire, they're probably assuming that I pay you break, I fix salaries. I'm aware that you can make money by not paying people what they're worth if you're in a marketplace where that there's a depressed marketplace where there's not a lot of opportunity. Moving is something that you typically do when you have the financial freedom to be able to move to a new area and have no job for a few months while you're looking. So people who are broke often tend to, if you live in a depressed market, are kind of fucked. They're stuck with whatever's available. I get it. But at the same time, I think there's a difference between that and someone saying rich people don't want you to have something nice. I actually say the exact opposite. I think that rich people that invest in XLF, index funds like XLF, love it when people live beyond their means. I think they love seeing people lease, Benzes and BMWs and Lambos, and I think they love seeing people pay their lease for an apartment that they want to use for a party on their fucking credit card. I think they love this shit because when you pay a 10 or 15 or 17% interest rate on something that you can't afford to buy, they make more money. Look at XLF over the last 6 months. Look at JP Morgan stock over the last 6 months. Look at the stock of any company that profits off of debt. And people trying to finance shit they can't afford over the past 6 months. Man, they made some. The rich people that invested in that shit are like, yeah, you know what? Keep buying it. Rich people that own that own index funds or QQQ or SPY probably look at people buying the next generation iPhone every single 6 months, looking at their Apple stock, probably thinking, yep, I don't think they have any opposition to poor people having a good shit. If anything, I think that rich people, if anything, would be more happy to see I think they would be more happy to see people who are financially in dire straits spending money on shit, because that directly affects the companies that they are invested in and allows them to make more money. But let's say that were true. Hypothetically speaking, let's say that the rich and the 1% and all that genuinely had a personal investment in people who are on the lower income spectrum not having happy lives. What does going in debt to prove them wrong do for you? What does spending money on something that you can't afford, that makes you financially uncomfortable, that means that you can't have an emergency fund, that means that you have to have more stress in your life, what is the benefit of cutting one's nose to spite their face? I don't see it. So I left, watching him go from renting a $4,000 apartment that he has paid several months for in credit card, that he can't afford, to looking at a $5,000 apartment that I'm sure as fuck he can't afford, using this mindset. And because these tend to always end the same way. I'm the killjoy. I'm the asshole. I'm the one keeping you from having fun. I'm the one who doesn't want to enjoy himself. And then, 2 months from now, or 5 months from now, or 9 months from now, or a year and a half from now, I'll hear, man, my finances got destroyed. Oh man, I'm screwed right now. It's like, oh, you mean 2 + 2 = 4? Who would have guessed? I probably sound like Dave Ramsey right now. I'm not trying to sound like Dave Ramsey right now. Because I've made a lot of stupid mistakes over the course of my life. And perhaps that's why I have a saving kind of mentality, or a I'm not going to spend a crazy amount of money on shit mentality, because I've made so many stupid decisions that I feel like I need to have a buffer so that if I make one again, I'm not completely in the hole. There's a lot of people outside, by the way. This is really starting to look like a kind of normal New York City. Not as crowded as it used to be, but I don't know if you guys noticed it, but it's pretty busy. We're kind of getting back to a city that I almost recognize. Now if some of the offices and schools and shit would reopen so that I actually get that business back. But yeah, we'll see. We will see. Remember when you said that it would make sense to get a new store so that you'd be able to handle the increasing walk-in business? Pepperidge Farm remembers. I'm a pretty stupid businessman, I'll tell you that. I am a dumbass. I put off expanding for the longest time because I was always nervous. Ever since the supply company failed, like almost 10 years ago, I've always been nervous that when I expand or that I grow, that I'm going to screw myself, or that like the moment I grow, the moment I finally decide to take that step and you know, finally not do business out of a shoebox, that everything would fall apart. I just think it's funny that like I finished moving the end of February 2020, right as the entire economy goes to complete and utter shit. This is something I'll tell my grandkids and I'll laugh at. Like I'll show them pictures of the hallway store. And I'll show them pictures of the hallway store when it had 2 people working at it, when it was just me, then when it was 4, then it was 8, then when we had over 12 people in that effing hallway, then when it got to the point where we had hi editing video in the bathroom or the basement. Oh, that was funny. And now finally, it's like, okay, when, you know, I'm not going to go for a space that's 10 times the size or 30 times the size or 60 times the size. I'm going to go for a space that's like 3.5 times the size. Pause. Entire world economy. Pause. New York City in general. Pause. That was funny. Like, this really does go back to the if I didn't laugh, I'd cry video. This goes back to that. And I'm serious about that because people will often say, why are you so negative? You don't understand. As I'm saying this stuff, I have a smile on my face because I'm laughing. And it's very important to be able to laugh at yourself. The more miserable what happens to you is, the more important that you be able to laugh at it, the more important that you be able to document it as a story that you tell your kids so that they can laugh at you. Because that is a good, I don't know what you're doing, but it's a good thing. It's a mentally healthy thing to do that, to be able to laugh at all the ridiculous shit that happens to you. Because it makes it easier for you to make the decisions that you need to make to live your life without living in this fear of anxiety or regret. That bike is not fast enough for the amount of noise that it makes as a gasoline motored bike. I mean, gasoline engine on a bicycle. Like, I get that gas engines make noise, it's just that amount of noise for that amount of speed just does not seem like a good deal. There's one thing about New York that I don't think is going to change for a while, and that are all these stores that are empty or closed in the middle of the day. I was reading articles where they were predicting a renaissance for New York City, where all of these people that closed, eventually these spaces will become affordable, and it'll be a small business renaissance where all these places, excuse me, I got something in my throat. Sorry. It'll be excuse me. Sorry. That it's going to be the small business renaissance for all these places decide to open that couldn't afford to open in the old New York. And then this new New York is going to be a place filled with small businesses, not just with franchises. And I kind of think it's just going to be filled with for lease signs. Hate to be the pessimist, but hey, look at this. I looked at this place. I don't think I recorded it, but I tried to convince them into dividing it up. They said, no, somebody will take it. Yeah, right. It's been 2 years. Nobody's taking your overpriced shit. By the way, one of you sent me a thing on how I can turn the horn of my car into Rick Astley, Never Gonna Give You Up. The other day, every time everybody around me would honk, I'd put on my earplugs, these Shure headphones, so I put on the earplugs momentarily, and then I would play Rick Astley, Never Gonna Give You Up at full blast with the windows down. What I was doing is I was rickrolling the people honking around me. I think it's much better than just yelling, suck my dick. It's probably better. Yelling suck my dick is the New York thing to do, but my friend Jake said if you drive in other states the way people drive in New York, or the way you become accustomed to driving in New York by the people constantly honking at you, that you'll get arrested. And I think yelling that, if I go to Tennessee or something, may get me arrested, so I'm preparing for that. So when people honk like crazy, I'd like to have a button that just plays Rick Astley, Never Gonna Give You Up at full blast, right as I toss the earplugs in just momentarily, like if I'm sitting at a red light or something. Because people do honk at red lights in New York City. It is a thing. I think in another state I won't be arrested for that. I'll just be intensely frowned on for it. My instincts went bad there. I didn't do a game of chicken. For some reason I went to the left. I feel ashamed for that. Should always be a game of chicken on a one-way street. This is Chelsea. We're coming up on Midtown, and it's pretty busy. As you can see, there's still lines outside of Trader Joe's. There's limiting the number of people that could be in the store at any given time, I imagine. So Trader Joe's is always one of those places that I really can't stand shopping at in Manhattan. Honestly, even in Brooklyn, it's so full all the time. Did any of you go to one of those really crowded high schools where to get from one class to the other, you're kind of like, you feel like sardines packed in a tin. If you ever go to the Union Square Trader Joe's, you have to suck your stomach in to get around people and shit. It's just so annoying. That was my bad. Just trying to pass that guy in. This is the bike that doesn't have the mirrors on it. My other bike has mirrors on it, which is really, I gotten very spoiled by that. Never gonna give, never gonna give, never gonna give you up. Never gonna give, never gonna give, never gonna give you up. Dun dun down down, down down down. Retail for lease, retail for lease, retail for lease, retail for lease. Retail for lease, retail for lease. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, this is delicious. That's not delicious. Now here I can show you what my parking spot is. When I drive, I can't show you what my parking spot is because that is unfortunately top secret at this time. I park for free in Manhattan in a space where there is 0% chance of getting any bumps or bruises or theft. And and 0% chance of getting a ticket, and it's free. But if I explain what that is, then I will lose it forever. So, but when I am going to the store with a bike, you can see where I park because it's not a parking spot I imagine any of you are going to take. Hello. Hello. How are you?